into the PHNX Cardinals podcast, which is definitely not a fucking disappointment. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Bo Brack. Welcome into Hard Knocks After Dark, Arizona Cardinals, HBO Max, episode 6. Michael Bidwill addressing the team, not only, Bo, about Steve Keim's absence, but cutting corners. Yes, Ooh. Please give me more. Give me 60 minutes of that conversation in Mr. B's hoodie and his skin tight jeans. I'm into it. Hard.
Yeah, it was the surprise cameo by the owner of the Arizona Cardinals to show up, and Cliff Kingsbury, after they gave Steve Keim about 15 seconds in this episode as expected. Cameron Cox on 12 News going through the news story and health related reasons he's stepping away from the team, and Cliff Kingsbury says, well, Mr. B's here and he'd like to say something to you about it's team related, folks. And he gets up there and he tells him that Steve Keim he doesn't expect it to be a long-term issue. You know, we wish him well. And
Read
then
into that.
And then
you will.
And then he says, what's up, Cards Update? And then he says, I'm just as fucking disappointed as you guys about all the losing. We're going to be paying attention. I'm already paying attention. And we can see some of you guys are doing your job. We know who's doing your job and who might be cutting some corners. So Michael Bidwill, at least roster-wise, paying very close attention these last couple games with this team out of playoff contention.
It's like J.J. Watt's doing his job. The rest of you assholes, get out of here. Everybody's been cut. No, I mean, that was I knew the episode was going to pop off when that happened because I'm like, hot damn. They gave him basically Cliff's over there kind of cowering in the corner. And everybody's like, oh, shit, the president and the owner of the team is here. And none of us, who've been on IR all season, we're cashing our fat checks. And the team's on, their third string center, et cetera. And then you got Mr. B coming in here basically saying like, hey, guys, what the fuck? Who's cutting corners? Everybody perk up. And didn't really do much. I mean, the Cardinals I have a fine week of practice and then lose to the Denver Broncos, who are equally as embarrassing this year. So,
hold on. That's the magic of Hard Knocks. So last week, coming off the Monday night game, they had one full day of practice. They had 2 closed walkthroughs Wednesday and Thursday, and then the highlights where they showed them just busting their ass and Trey McBride making plays all over the practice field and J.J. Watt getting after it. That was Friday. They had one full day of practice like that. So we don't know. I mean, the walkthroughs it's kind of similar to the country club-esque training camp. But yeah, it was good for footage on Hard Knocks, no doubt about it.
They didn't have enough live tackling on Friday to be able to tackle 100-year-old Latavius Murray on Sunday afternoon. But when you're building around marquee players like Tanner Vallejo and Dennis Gardeck, what do you expect? But the episode was loaded. It was absolutely loaded. The Bidwill speech was great. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But I do want to turn our attention to the conversation because a lot of people said the best part, they thought conversation between Vance and Cliff, where basically they're bullshitting about the season. They're talking about the disappointments. And they just said, out of our hands, a lot of stuff out of our hands, basically saying injuries have played too big of a part. We just can't compete. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, Bo, but basically there was no, I'm taking responsibility. We have to be better. We haven't been good enough. I haven't coached well enough. It was very much like, this is just most of this is out of our hands because we lost, some key players along the way. I'm sorry. Kyler Murray was healthy when your team was 4-8. I don't want to hear about out of your hands. Vance, I would say large majority of your defense has been healthy this year outside of last week when all your corners were down. You've had Watt, you've had Zach Allen, you've had all your linebackers, you've had your safeties. Budda and Jalen have been there every step of the way. I'm not into that. And if that's the narrative, we're going to go down here for the next 3 weeks. I'm going to throw up. Because to me, the excuse making when you've won one home game in 14 months, when you're 5-14 and it's out of our hands, you know what's out of my hands? The remote. I'm turning this off. I'm not into it.
People are giving up on their season tickets the next season. Yeah, I mean, the adjective that Vance used was bizarre. This is bizarre, isn't it? Isn't it bizarre? It's been
bizarre
to tough.
Lose? Or is it's not good?
It's just it hasn't been competitive. No matter how you slice it, injuries are not the main reason why you've given up the most points in the NFL. I mean, that's there's more to it. There's more to the story to be that bad. And this defense gets credit because the offense was such a sludge for the beginning of the season that they just couldn't, get anything done in the first half, and they're chasing leads the entire, first 8-9 games of the season, or really kind of before DeAndre Hopkins returns. And it's just, it was strange to hear that. Now, we don't know if that was just like, is that everyday conversation? Is that kind of a theme that's been going on, or was that just something that was caught by the cameras last week where they were just kind of having, especially coming off the Kyler injury, that was kind of the exclamation point on all of these injuries, that your franchise quarterback went down to a serious knee injury. Now are you just like, man, what's going on here?
Yeah. I didn't buy into the Vance Joseph narrative about we need to be prepping for next year and have good momentum. Then why are you playing Marcus Golden and Dennis Gardeck over Cameron Thomas and Myjai Sanders? Why are Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas, your two most effective edge rushers, not playing? They're playing like 10 to 15 snaps. Get the fuck out of here with that. And I thought it was a good episode with Vance. Got to see his family, his home life. Like, it's easy to fall in love with Vance off the field. He's personable. He's got
his
great
senior
energy.
Citizen speed walking routine before the sun comes up every day. Apparently,
all those guys when they do that. You've outed them now. They can't do that anymore at 4:35 a.m. But Vance is a super easy guy to root for. But again, believe what they do, not what they say. And this has been Vance's problem since he came to Arizona. Vance, you were supposed to play Isaiah Simmons 100% of the snaps since day one. You blew that. Byron Murphy played less snaps in year 2 than he did in year 1. We've had all these unknowns about these defensive players that are on rookie contracts because of Vance Joseph, because he refuses to develop them, because he plays these journeyman linebackers, corners, safeties, defensive linemen over these draft picks. So he's like, we gotta get ready for next year. We got to get that momentum. We won't regret it. No, I'm regretting you as the defensive coordinator right now, Vance, because I want to see Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas over these final 4 games. I don't want to see Dennis Gardeck anymore. I'm sorry. I don't want to see Marcus Golden or Victor Dumakagi. Give me the 2 third-rounders and let the chips fall where they may. That's, to me, it's like lost seasons are one thing. We've had plenty of those in Arizona. They've won 4 games this year. You got to play the young guys, right? And so that to me, when he said that, I'm just like, I'm out. I'm sorry, Vance. Find a new team next year.
Right. I mean, we saw a full display. Frank Sanders, our co-host, was watching the game with us on Sunday. And, you saw some decent plays from Christian Matthew at the end of the Patriots game and in the Broncos game in the first half. And he was obviously benefiting from J.J. Watt turning back the clock a couple of years, getting 3 sacks, including a strip sack of Brett Rippon. But then we saw in the second half, he suffered an injury and get exposed for the most part, where his man is streaking towards the end zone and he continues to backpedal towards the goal line. And it's just like, that probably doesn't happen if the 7th round pick rookie sees more snaps, right? Or gets more involved. Now, I know he dealt with injuries, but I think that's just the point that you're making, is like, you got to let these rookies fail at some point. You probably should do it earlier.
The 7th rounder.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the expectations, but to see 21 combined snaps in week 15 of where you finally mathematically were eliminated, but you were eliminated long before that. I mean, going into the game, at 4-9, and to only see 10 snaps from Myjai and 11 from Cameron Thomas, that's like
gross.
He should be locked up, right? I mean, the next time he's speed walking at 4:30 in the morning, police should pull up and just put him in handcuffs for how he handled the snaps of our 2 third-round picks, right?
There's criminal. A common theme. There's a common thing. I'm getting DMs, tweets, messages in the comments. Keep it coming, guys. Like this video. We love doing these Hard Knocks After Dark with you guys, just to hang and talk some ball. Dylan Richards, couple comments here. Cliff and Vance team a little too comfortable. They're comfortable together. And then Dylan also adds, are they thinking of next year because they know they'll already be here? And then I got a DM just now of one of our buddies of the show basically saying, hey, like, I'm nervous because Michael addressed the fact that Steve would be back, maybe, kind of, sort of. I wouldn't buy into any of that. Like, that. Yeah. What are they going to say during the year? Like, no. Rest assured, everyone's getting fired. Just hang tight for a month and then it'll be official. No, like, Michael and probably a select few people know about Cliff's fate, but then everybody right now nationally, like Steve Keim, there's no way Steve Keim can come back. There are reports. What we've doubled down now on our theory, and you can go look on the Twitter streets of why people feel like Steve Keim is gone. Certainly doesn't seem like a life-threatening situation with Steve, based on Michael Bidwill's verbiage, based on the fact that Keim in
the long term, he'll be fine. Though that's an exact quote from Michael Bidwill. In the long term, he'll be fine.
But long term.
What health issues
doesn't need to be with us?
What does he have? Mono? Like, what are we talking about here? I mean,
he does not.
No. So you can rarely say that in anything, any comment you've heard from Vance Joseph, Cliff Kingsbury, now Michael Bidwill on Steve Keim. It's like it doesn't sound like something that we're normally would say, hey, we wish him the best, a speedy recovery. Never have I heard a speedy recovery.
We're going to rally behind Steve Keim.
We're going to win one for the Gipper with Keim. Nothing along those lines.
Him by his hospital bed, team, FaceTime with him. No. Something else is going on. You can read between the lines. There's zero chance that we feel like Keim will be the GM of this team in this offseason. Now, Cliff's a different story, because if you watch Cliff and Vance operate, Bo, especially when you see Vance and Bidwill getting chummy on the sideline, although that seemed very staged to me. 50-50 they're back. I don't think so. I think that I think they're going to clean house, because, again, everybody can be chummy with people, but it's a production-based business. And, there's a reason why assholes get to keep their job if they're good at it. Cliff, Vance, they seem like good dudes. They're not winners. They're not winning for this team. This team is 4-10. I don't care how many injuries they have.
Right. And the same thing goes for, Colt McCoy. Everybody, very easy guy to root for. But at the end of the day, when you look at the resume and you say, hey, I'm building a football team, as much as you love the work ethic and how he talks to teammates and the leader he is, but he's limited skill-wise. Like, he's not a starting quarterback. It's the same thing. There's limitations there. And the Arizona Cardinals, I think this fan base, they're tired of it. We had a huge discussion today about, what the Suns are doing and what they could do under new ownership, and what this Arizona Cardinals organization has not done and has a track record of not doing, and settling for mediocrity and sometimes less, below average, So it was good for the first time all season long, because I think that was legitimately our first glimpse in comments from Michael Bidwill on tonight's Hard Knocks, and it was nice to see him kind of put everybody on notice. Now you hope he means it, especially after how the team has underperformed all season long.
I like this comment from Jalen Blair, and I'm gonna add something to it. But he says, I think VJ feels like if he pulls Golden and the vets and just plays the rookies, that's basically waving the white flag and give okay for other teams to stop playing hard, which the lauded for them. I would say, number one, I don't think Vance is good at developing young talent. Neither is Cliff, for that matter. But here's what I will give you. I do think that Vance wants to be able to take his tape and say, hey, this is what I got. We didn't give up. I still played my starters, blah, blah, blah. If he has to go interview for another team next year, if he maybe we're putting our microscope up and just say detective hat and say, if he felt like he was going to be the DC of this team next year, wouldn't it behoove him to play the young players? I know Gardak and Golden are under contract, but nobody can watch this team we've been, victimized for 14 weeks watching this team, 12 weeks, whatever it is, and tell me that either one of those players is more explosive and getting after the quarterback than Cameron Thomas and Myjai Sanders. It's just a flat lie.
Right. And what they say, and it almost feels like, speaking of lies, what they say in press conferences about how excited they are about these young guys. Yeah. And then to turn around and see them have a decrease in snap load. I don't get it. And, I think I speak for the fan base, where I'm just like, I'm tired of everything being so hard, and it's just not being, you can't take this team at face value. It's great. Enjoy that sweet, sweet red line before a deep slumber on that water. But it's the famous Venerable waterbed that's out there in Maricopa, just swishing around.
Somebody earlier in the chat said, Johnny's my favorite person that lives in Maricopa, because he's the only person I know that lives in Maricopa. We're keeping this party going here on Hard Knocks post game, but I want to remind everybody, the party online, gambling wise, is with our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. And my favorite time of year to gamble, Basically, you got football Thursday, you got football Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you got college football, bowl games, NBA action, constantly dabble a little bit on the Coyotes with a little NHL hockey. But listen, if you're going to stick to football, let me give you a little tip right now on DraftKings. Download it. Use that promo code PHNX. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game. Get $150 in free bets if they do. I believe the Buffalo Bills are playing the Chicago Bears this weekend. That ought to be a dub for Buffalo. And again, it's not the spread, the robust spread. It is just the money line bet. So take $5, deposit it right now in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Then you hit your game, you hit your victory, you get $150 free dollars in bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details.
A ton of great comments that I want to get to in the chat, but first I got to tell you about another great time, and it's our PHNX Tea Party that's going down January 13. The PHNX Suns show is going to be hanging out with you and a bunch of us from the PHNX crew. We're going to be out there at the Dobson Ranch Golf Club. It's been renovated, and it's got some great games for everybody. It's $45 per person, $36 for Diehards. You can save some coin if you sign up to become a Diehard. We'll tell you later in the show about all the benefits of that, but you get unlimited range balls, a set of rental clubs, jumbo screen showing the Suns, T-Wolves, and you get 1 hour free range time golf balls. Dobson Ranch, you can use at a later date. That's $35 in value. Many games, including cornhole, pickleball, and ping pong. Contest entries, including longest drive. I think I'm going to win that one. Putting challenges and highest score. Heaters and hot chocolate to keep you warm. Food and drink will be available for purchase with offerings from the PHNX Locker and PHNX Party partners that we all love. And there will be a free kids clinic provided to all kids 10 and under. Join us at the PHNX Tea Party presented by Four Peaks at Dobson Ranch Golf Course on January 13th. Now, I want to get into what Dylan Richards is talking about here. He said, can someone reassure me that the normal for a head coach as position coach, what a player can do, isn't that a head coach's job? Is to know. Yeah, there it is. If you're watching us here on YouTube, this was one of my favorite scenes of the entire episode, where it's the unfortunate time when Zach Ertz went down to a knee injury, and they show Cliff Kingsbury's reaction. His reaction was "fuck," and standing him right behind him is Zach Ertz's backup Trey McBride, and then he turns around, notices McBride, and he's like, "Oh, you good? You good?" And then he goes to new Cardinals offensive line coach, tight ends coach, and asks him, like, what do we know about Trey McBride, basically? Like, what are his strengths? Is there anything we should be worried about? And the tight ends coach is like, no, he's good. He's solid. And then it was a slow build for Trey.
Plug and play.
Right. Well, I do think that this episode, for those who are worried about Trey McBride, I think you should keep the faith as far as McBride.
He's going to be good.
I think he is. I mean, he had his best game as a pro so far, 55 catches. They showed him, playing, blocking it up a little bit. And I think that's something that has been a main focus for him. But he's just going to play. I mean, Zach Ertz was a guy that had not only this MCL tear, but he had an ACL tear, that partial tear that they fixed up. So it's going to be a little bit longer road. He's not 25 like Kyler Murray. It's going to be a little bit longer road and more physical job for a guy like Ertz at tight end to come back. So it's going to be McBride's job to lose going forward, don't you think?
I think there's a good chance we don't see Zach Ertz at all next year. I don't know that for a fact, but he tore that in October. He tore both. You talk about a position. I know Kyler Murray's same boat, but he just tore one of the ligaments. I mean, Ertz's game is predicated on getting out of his blocks, being explosive, right? Catching the football downfield. Tight end's a young man's game. And I will always, with this regime, defer to the player when their development is slow. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Hassan Reddick, ring a bell. The guy's kicking ass and taking names. Trey McBride is going to be fine. Hopefully it's going to be with maybe a different coaching staff that's going to be able to use his talents more consistently. But again, watch those highlights, albeit the Mountain West Conference, just lighten people up. Acrobatic catches. Bo, you talked about it in training camp. He was unbelievable. He makes unbelievable plays during practice. He will be fine. I think his floor is next year, 500-600 yards. Let's see him get in the end zone. I don't know who's going to be throwing him balls, but I think he is going to be incredibly efficient next year. That's the rookie class to me. With all this shitstorm going on, I have hopes that at least all of them are going to have starting roles next year. But yeah, it was that piece I really appreciate, because it wasn't like fluff stuff. It was like, we're going to highlight a guy who's going back home to play against the team he grew up rooting for. He had a big game, right? We don't know much about him. He's going to be on the team moving forward. Like, there were some episodes where I'm just like, I don't care about this long term. This player's not going to be around. It doesn't impact the game. They don't play no. Like, Trey McBride is going to be a fixture of this offense no matter who the quarterback or head coach is.
Yeah. I like this point from Jalen Blair. Tight ends usually don't break out until year 2. I mean, we kind of saw it with Pitts year 1. That was kind of unprecedented, right? He came out of the gates and had a 1,000-yard receipt. Right. And then the year 2, he kind of takes a step back before his injury. But like Cole Kmet, you've seen him kind of emerge in Chicago as one of Justin Fields' most reliable guys. And I think that's something to get excited about for Arizona. I mean, there's the tight end position is so complex as far as what your responsibilities are. And they're so different on any given play that you're playing offensive line, you're a skill position player as well. And it really excited about it. Yeah, TJ Hawkinson as well is somebody that's emerged.
He's got 130 yards this year. Would it shock you if he finished with like 250 and just had and everybody would look at that and just say, oh, that's reasonable?
He might be limited as far as who's throwing the ball the rest of the way. Obviously, you've got McSorley starting at quarterback this week against Tampa, and then maybe even the next week after that in Atlanta. But
they've got a rapport we saw in the game.
Yeah, they do. So if he continue, I think that's one of the few things offensively that you should look forward to the rest of the season, the last 3 games.
Jose saying stupid to say rookies aren't developing. Jose, where have you been, my man? This team cannot develop rookies under this regime. They take too long. That's why we have all these questions about Zach Allen and Byron Murphy. What should we pay them? They develop by playing. Ask anybody. We talk to Frank Sanders and Damian Anderson about this regularly. You have to play to get better. There's only so much that the film room, the practice room can do for you. And where the Cardinals have stunted the growth of so many players, especially like somebody like Isaiah Simmons. And I saw somebody in the chat, I think Craig said Simmons is going to go on to have success with another team. Cardinals did themselves a disservice, moving him around, fucking with his psyche, right? Pulling him, putting him back out there. It hasn't been consistent enough for Isaiah to have success from the jump. And I just hope if and when they make a change, GM, head coach, etc., that this new staff, and we've been saying this for a long time, just says, we're going to let our rookies play. We have confidence in our drafting and developing process. We're not going to have a one-year journeyman take vital snaps away from rookies. And we're going to be confident. And this is the biggest thing, Jose, that I want to emphasize. We're going to be confident in our coaching staff that they can make them better over the course of a 5-6 month season. And I don't have that confidence with this coaching staff right now. That's why I'm inclined to defer to the player like Trey McBride. Like, I know you're capable in the right hands.
Yeah, for sure. And the college highlights should get you excited seeing him kind of play hard in that one practice that they showed on Friday or from Friday. That's huge. So any other takeaways from Hard Knocks tonight, Johnny? Anything stand out to you as far as the conversations that were had?
They kind of glossed over that first half, did they not? When you talked about like the fact that the offense didn't do anything with Colt McCoy, they had 6 points, 2 field goals in that first half against Denver. The practice routine was fine. It just, to me, everything about Michael Bidwill at the beginning, I mean, that left me pretty shaken, just having watched that and say, okay, he knew that Hard Knocks was filming. So God knows what he's saying behind closed doors if he's going to be that animated. And I think about the term cutting corners. And you only say that when it's a reflection, I believe, on leadership. If I have a leader, a manager, a boss, and I'm enabled to do whatever I want to do, and I don't have to show up to work on time, and I don't have to study, and I don't have to do all of my work, and I can cut out early, that's a reflection of me, yes. But if I'm enabled to do that consistently, that's a reflection of my boss. But if I have respect for my leadership and they hold me accountable, it's a 53-man roster. They basically live together. Like, this isn't college football where they're kids and you only have so much time with them. These are professional athletes, and they're cutting corners on Cliff Kingsbury that's a direct, like, yeah, some people may pay for it, and it's a bad reflection on the individual players that are doing that. To me, like Cliff, and you see it time and time again, he's just too much of a player's coach where I think a lot of guys are taking advantage and it's spiraled out of control for him. And now he doesn't know what to, having that interaction. I think, who was he having an interaction with walking down the sideline that you got this, man? No problem. And the player, it was a little bit dismissive in the game. I can't remember what it was, but man, I feel like Cliff right now.
From last week's episode, or
no, from this week's episode. Was it Trey? Was it Trace McSorley? I couldn't remember. There was an injury that happened in the game, and it was just, yeah, I got this, no problem. I don't know. It just,
no, that was Trey. I felt like that was every interaction he had with Trace McSorley. There was nothing where there was true head coach or play caller engagement with his quarterback. Like I didn't get that. I was like, I was expecting more of a back and forth from him and Trace, but maybe Trace just felt like, I mean, he's a guy who hasn't seen the playing field when the ammo was live. For him to go, maybe he was just kind of deer in the headlights or just tunnel focused on that. But no, you're right. And do we want to try to think about who Bidwill's talking about as far as player wise, cutting corners, or I think of veterans. I think of some wide receivers who are used to seeing a ton of playing time that have struggled to get on the field and find consistent snaps and just haven't made an impact that they've made elsewhere. I think guys like Robbie Anderson, AJ Green probably could be in that conversation. I don't think that's unfair in saying that. And then you got to think about on the defensive side of the football. It's obviously not guys like Watt, and I don't think it's guys like Collins or anybody like that. But as far as the results, I mean, I think there's probably quite a few guys that Bidwill, because he sits there with Vance Joseph, he sits there with Cliff Kingsbury, and they break down the film. I'm sure he's very well aware who's giving max effort on plays and who's not.
I mean, we just saw in Mexico City, Antonio Hamilton just shaking off a George Kittle tackle, and you had to address it on Hard Knocks. It's every week with these guys, and rest assured, if you're up for it this weekend against Tampa on Underdog Fantasy, you can take the lower for Trace McSorley, and no one is going to judge you because that is the smart move, even if it's as low as it can be. Underdog Fantasy is where we're hanging for the remainder of the season. We are done with year-long fantasy. We are on to daily fantasy, and that's the best part. You fumble away a matchup against 5-year buddies on a Friday. Boom, you're back at it on Saturday. No strings attached. Draft 6 NBA players. No positional limits. That is it. You can go nuts, shooting guards, power forwards, whatever you want to do. And it's up to you to take home that cold, hard cash. Like, will Devin Booker hit the higher end points? Will Colt McCoy even play? We'll find out this weekend. But right now, you can find out what's good on Underdog Fantasy. And it's so easy to get started, guys. I know you've been hearing a lot about Underdog Fantasy, but now is the time to tap in because it goes throughout the playoffs. So it doesn't stop with the regular season. All you got to do, go to UnderdogFantasy.com, download the app, sign up with promo code PHNX. Underdog is going to match your first deposit. You guessed it, up to $100. Again, promo code PHNX, put in $100, boom, you get out $100 with Underdog Fantasy and begin to dabble with your free money. Do it. Get in on the action today.
I'm a dog. You're a dog. We're all underdogs. We love Underdog Fantasy. We also love our friends over at OGs. Partner up with them for this year and beyond. We love OGs Brands, and it's the perfect stocking stuffer for you. It's the perfect Hanukkah gift. It's the perfect gift to bring in the new year. There's something from OGs for every occasion. And if you haven't gotten in on it, you got to check out all their products on their website, ogsbrands.com. Also recommend following them on Instagram as well. Got great insight as far as what products they have on their IG. Raspberry orange creamsicle. I'm having a tough time deciding which my favorite kind are. Blackberries and cream, tropical flavors. They're all unbelievable. So is the aqua berry sleep time gummy. If you have trouble sleeping, if you're going to have a tough time, slowing down after watching Johnny and myself at this late hour, it's going to keep you up at hours on end thinking about all the profound shit that we just said about the Arizona Cardinals that are going to keep you awake until the wee hours of the morning. Well, just take one of these sleep time gummies. It's going to help put you to sleep and keep you asleep. It's aquaberry, as I said. Check out all the products. Get your friends, your family these perfect stocking stuffers at ogsbrands.com. You can also find them at your local dispensary. Got to be 21 years or older, though.
Bees, we love you, brother. Feel bad that Bo and Johnny have to create content on this shit show. I think he's not referencing this show. I think he's talking about the Cardinals have turned into this season. Well, I mean, all content is good content. It just depends on what you do with it. And I think, listen, as naive as it might sound, we feel like with this platform, with this voice that we have, we owe it to everybody to keep it real. We're keeping it real here. And that's not a knock on other sides, mainly the team side that has to be very pro team. But we're here every day basically as an echo chamber of you, the fan base, because we ourselves are fans. Bo's at practice every day. We're here making this rundown to be able to tell you guys exactly and just to articulate what you guys want to talk about. And with this team, it's a lot of embarrassing garbage this year. But we'll give credit where credit's due. I mean, if we were doing the show this time last year, which I was with Cheerson Susel and Frank Sanders, we were all over this team. They were doing great things. They're not great right now. They have 4 wins. They have 1 win at home in 14 months. They're 4-15, or excuse me, 5-14 in their last 19 games. So they're going to hear about it from us. And we're 3 weeks away from the end of the season. And that is where we will start anew. And hopefully, like, new GM, new head coach, new personnel. It's a good time. Be positive, and hopefully Michael Bidwill was serious about the messaging he gave off tonight. Hopefully as an appetizer, like, hey guys, this is a final month of the season. Everybody better get their shit together and give their best effort because tough decisions got to be made because this salary cap, the Cardinals have spent a lot of money. They've invested in a lot of veteran players. They traded away their first-round pick, and the production's not there. So what do? You make changes if things don't work, don't you?
Yeah. And we talk about guys who aren't cutting corners, picking spreads, be good friend of the program. Ask what happened with D-Hop, probably asking about the PI that should have been called on the 2-point conversion. I asked Cliff, I'm like, are you surprised that DeAndre Hopkins doesn't get that call? And he kind of walked on eggshells as he probably didn't want to have any money taken out of his bank account because he was criticizing officials. But he was surprised. But I also loved DeAndre Hopkins going to Vance Joseph when Christian Matthew went down in that game saying, I played corner in high school. And he was like, no, I'm serious. And Vance Joseph was kind of just trying to focus on actually how he could help his ailing defense out there. But you got to love that DeAndre Hopkins is as advertised. He's a leader of this team. I know he's got a big cap number next year, but he is right now. And I know at his age, you're concerned, but this is a guy that can be part of the solution of the Arizona Cardinals. You love that. You love that he went up to the DC, and that was another highlight from tonight's show.
Yeah, and I also just feel like you just need good players. And the Cardinals, even if they're rebuilding next year, are going to need good players like DeAndre Hopkins on the team. And they're going to need people to celebrate. And I'm not giving away DeAndre Hopkins for a ham sandwich like Dallas did with Amari Cooper. I'm just not interested in doing that. If somebody comes to you and blows you away and says, D-Hop is the missing piece for our championship team. Here's a first-round pick. Here's a pick in the 20s. Here's a high second and a player. Of course, you consider it, but I mean, we're not going to be in a position. I think Cardinals Update puts it well. Like Michael Bidwill does not want to give away star players. It just now there's guys he's soured on, like a Patrick Peterson, for instance, that they let go, or Calais Campbell, which they fumbled that away. But he was into his 30s and wasn't playing particularly well, and then had a resurgence in Jacksonville. Good for him. But like DeAndre Hopkins next year, would it shock anybody, even without Kyler Murray, if he has 1,400 yards? No, that's just the kind of player he is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How many years does a rebuild take? Well, I mean, in the NFL, if you do it right, a good draft class, and the Arizona Cardinals are going to certainly have some high draft picks each round. I know that they gave away a 7th and a 5th round pick, but they're going to get some compensatory picks as well, probably an extra 3rd. So if whoever the next GM is can have a strong draft, that can kind of expedite a rebuild. And then obviously you have to have a strong free agency. You have to fill some holes. But I don't think it's absurd to think that this team can get back on the right track. Now, are they winning the NFC West in 2023? No, I'm not going to put any money down on that. But at the same time, like, we see worst to first type turnarounds in the NFL all the time. That's why people love this game of football, because their team can be brutal one season, and then with the right, mixture of player moves and infusion of young players that can make an impact early and great quarterback play, potentially, things can turn around quickly. So Are we anticipating? I don't anticipate this thing being a long drawn. I mean, Steve Keim turned this team around, put them back in the postseason after that brutal 2018 season in 3 years. So I don't think anybody's sitting here saying, hey, this is going to take, 4 to 5 years.
And you saw the right head coach in 2013 in the best division in recent memory is that 2013 division when you had, of course, Seattle and San Francisco, button heads trying to get to the Super Bowl. And there's Bruce Arians with a bunch of spare parts getting to 10 wins, winning coach of the year. And then they made the playoffs next year. It just really depends on your belief in Kyler Murray, how quickly Kyler Murray can come back. If Kyler Murray's on track to return and it takes him 2 to 4 weeks in the next season and he's back and he picks up hopefully a new playbook, I mean, they'll be in it. If Hollywood's around and D-Hop's around and they fortify some pieces here and there and they add some talent to the front seven, also, who's their head coach? Is it Cliff Kingsbury or is it Sean fucking Payton or is it Jim Harbaugh or is it DeMeco Ryan? Right? A lot of it, we can't sit here and say they're a playoff team next year, but I could sit here in May or June and Kyler Murray looks really good walking around, moving around and say yeah, this team can make the playoffs. Look who's making the playoffs in the NFC this year. It's garbage. Danny Dimes with the Giants, Taylor Heineke with a forgotten Washington Commanders team. The Detroit Lions, I love the Lions. I love their story. They were 1-6. They've got an outside chance to make the playoffs. I don't think the Cardinals are going to win the West next year, but I think it's stupid to say next year's a waste. It's over.
Right.
Let's see who's returning and not returning before we say that. But I think 7 seeds, you can get in.
Whoever takes over the keys to this franchise, if it's at the general manager spot or if it is at the head coach spot and he handpicks the next GM, whatever it turns into, but you hope that with Kyler Murray and you proceed with caution, late October, November, if that's what his timeline is, you hope that this team builds the team, that so that it can be efficient without Kyler Murray, right? And that whoever's under center can have a chance. I feel like this team, when Colt McCoy first stepped in last year, just over a calendar year ago, this team was good enough roster-wise to where it could compete with Colt McCoy, where this year, I mean, things were so depleted that there was so much talent left the door. It was run down by injuries. And as far as, schematically, offensively and defensively, the league had kind of caught up with Cliff and Vance. This team has a lot of work to do, but I think it's certainly possible. And with one Pro Bowler, Johnny, I mean, that's Budda Baker being the lone Pro Bowl selection for the Arizona Cardinals just pretty much solidifies that the story that was written about the 2022 Cardinals was a tragedy. I mean, it was it's been a tragedy from the very start.
You want to get my hot take on it? I wish they didn't have any. I wish they had been snubbed but I get it. Budda's definitely deserving.
I think JJ was snubbed. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and go get on social media and say JJ Watt was snubbed and,
how many
scream it from the top of him
from the 31st or 2nd.
Sure. Well, here's the biggest indictment on everything is all that you invested in on the offensive side of football, and injuries be what they will. Not one selection from the offensive side of football.
No one was trending toward a Pro Bowl berth before they got hurt.
And nobody was worthy. Nobody you can make a case for it. Your entire offensive line was just absolutely depleted. I don't think any of those guys, maybe DJ Humphries would be in the conversation if he stayed healthy. But yeah, I mean,
Rodney Hudson got Pro Bowl votes for the training room. That's about it. That's with too many of these guys. Justin Pugh, all Pro Bowl training room. Let's talk about Byron Murphy, now all pro training room guy. And I get it. People got injuries. That's whatever. But my preference is no one make the Pro Bowl this year. Eat a big shit sandwich team and be able to just sit back and say, hang on, we're down there with the Jags, who, by the way, Jags didn't have any Pro Bowlers. They're fun as hell. They're 6-8. They've got a chance to win the AFC South. I don't know. Budda's definitely deserving. I want Budda to make the Hall of Fame one day. This is his 5th Pro Bowl selection. Totally deserving. And you're right. JJ could have gotten in. I would have had no problem with that. And you watch JJ, and he means so much to this team. And that's why, who knows? Maybe he'll be back. Maybe Michael Bidwill pleads for him to come back next year. But, man, the offense all your chips, your head coach, your first round draft pick you traded for, your second round pick, all of your money, right? We talked about it. They've spent $25 million more in a cap league on offense than they have on the defense, and nobody sniffed the Pro Bowl. It's sad, but it's a popularity contest too. You know that, Bo.
It is, and nobody was even close to being that popular. I mean, Budda was selected to start, right? And he was in the conversation for strong safety for a while, but no, I mean, there was just nobody. There was nothing that was exciting people outside of Arizona about this team. Nothing was showing up. Nothing was transcending the desert. You know, Hollywood Brown was okay, right? But he averaged just over 10 yards per reception. DeAndre Hopkins had to miss 6 games because of the PED suspension. And you can think what you want about that, but that's just reality and that's the facts. You know, Ertz gets hurt. You know, McBride has been a very slow developing, you know, top pick in the second round for the Cardinals. And, you know, James Conner missed a couple games with a rib injury after signing a big 3-year contract extension. And Kyler Murray, you know, even if he played all 17 games, you know, the numbers were not there. The numbers were not there for him to be a Pro Bowl.
Not even close.
It was just as I said, it was a tragedy, and it was not even a real good read either. It's not one that you want to pick back up or recommend to friends, or when the movie comes out, say the book is better than the movie. None of that. It's all awful.
I'm ready to stiff arm the Pro Bowl. I want, if they get a new head coach, God willing, for that coach to be the coach of the Senior Bowl this year, which Bo Brack is going to be at. And I want to watch the Senior Bowl. I'm more interested in that now that the Cardinals are going to have a plethora of high draft picks. Somebody asked in the chat earlier, Bo, what are the odds right now that they get a top 3 draft pick? We don't have the most up-to-date draft order right now on the show, but we have almost the same.
They're fifth. They're top 5.
Yeah,
they're 5
fifth.
right now.
So I'm gonna pull this up, producer Emma. Don't get mad at me. So this says 4th. It's actually 5th, but you do you know, you can see everything else is basically outlined. Green Bay, you know, they won, so I think they fell out, but who cares who's 10th? But basically the Cardinals are top 5, and they've got 3 teams in front of them realistically that they could pass if they continue to lose. I don't think Chicago, if you look at their schedule, Buffalo, Minnesota, I think maybe the Lions, I don't think they're winning another game. But then you look at Denver and you look at the Rams, they play this weekend, right? Very winnable game for the New Orleans Saints this weekend. They play the Browns. I think Atlanta's got some winnable games toward the next couple of weeks. So I would say the odds for them to get a top 3 pick, Bo, I'd probably say like 25%. But a top 5 pick, I would say 75% is probably what I'd say.
I mean, a lot higher. I mean, if you don't win another game this season, I mean, you're probably in the driver's for sure. I mean, but if you're stuck on 4 wins, I think, you know, 4-3, that'd be huge for this team, especially when you look at so many quarterback hungry teams. I think it's well overdue for Carolina and Houston to get into the conversation for taking that position, especially with this draft class, when you've got guys, probably 4 guys that are going to be legitimately considered, you know, first round caliber quarterbacks. When you look at CJ Stroud and of course you've got like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson and Young from Alabama. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a class that's going to be highly coveted, and those teams are going to get hungry, and the Arizona Cardinals can benefit from sticking and picking and taking the best position player available, not non-quarterback available, and then those other teams just kind of try to jockey for position to get a quarterback in this draft.
And I think they're in really good shape for a stud defensive front 7 player, because I mean, like I like Josh Jones, assuming DJ Humphries can come back. That's not a huge ask, but he needs to stay healthy. He signed a contract extension. Like Humphries is going to be on the team next year. Josh Jones, I think, is playing good football. That's a player we probably don't talk enough about. If there's a generational tackle, but there's not a Penei Sewell, I think, in this class. But there are blue chip, I would say once every couple of years, front 7 players that the Cardinals are going to have a chance to select. And I'm with everybody. Like, yeah, if they lose out, you know, they're going to be guaranteed a top 4 pick. The Atlanta game's big. If they go to Atlanta and they play for pride, which give them credit, and they beat Atlanta with Desmond Ridder, who has not been good, that's going to swing a little bit back into 5, 6, 7 range. But if they lose out and they, who knows? San Francisco might be playing backups in a couple of weeks. We don't know what the seeding is going to look like. But we're a long way to go from that. And part of it, and we talked about it in our 4 p.m. show, is, Bo, like what kind of effort is Cliff and Vance's team going to give? Is it going to look like the second half against Denver? And if that's the case, if we have 6 more quarters than that to me, you're Michael Bidwill. I don't know how you can move forward with this group of coaches.
Yeah, and I think that Atlanta, despite the lack of productivity from the quarterback position, they can do what Denver did. Like, they can run Patterson at you. They can run him right at you, and they can come out of the locker room probably in a after a brutal first half where it was a defensive struggle, and then run Patterson, run Algier, who's his backup there, and put up points and get enough out of Drake London and get out of there with a dub. So I think, and like, that's the biggest thing. It's like this Arizona Cardinals coaching staff, I still I didn't like what I saw, and it's only glimpses.
Not a good episode for them.
The halftime locker room, it just seemed like there wasn't a whole lot going on, right? No. They seemed pretty content with a 6-3 lead. There wasn't anything on the whiteboard. Like, there was nothing. There wasn't like, hey, here's what they're doing. And they come out and Denver had made all the proper adjustments, and the Cardinals didn't do anything. And sure, they lost Colt McCoy, but still, I mean, I think that going forward, that's a big problem you're going to have.
Seemed like amateur hour, but this is not amateur podcasting. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star. Check out our guy, Howard Balzer, absolutely crushing it. He's the PHNX Cardinals beat reporter at GoPHNX.com. Again, 90% of our content at GoPHNX.com is for free. But if you're dabbling on Howard, use that promo code Howard, HOWARD. Become a diehard. Bo Brack, you cop a free hat, cop a free t-shirt every single year, 20% off merch, exclusive member Discord, hanging out at events, discounts at events. Got a huge event slate right after the new year. Some Cardinal stuff. We're going to have a banger of a draft party. We want to see everybody there. Howard Balzer is great. He is one of a kind. We feel very fortunate to have him on the team. And if you feel like this season hasn't gone your way as a Cardinal fan, PHNX Cardinals is going to do our best to make sure the offseason you're locked and loaded with every single exclusive content you can get. I said it earlier. I'm going to repeat it. Bo and I are going to be on Radio Row trying to grab everybody we can to get you insight. Bo's going to be at the Senior Bowl. We're going to be tag teaming the NFL Combine. Hopefully, we've got a huge caravan, producer Emma, Shane, Saul, and we're going to be ready to go to get answers for you, because that's what this show does. We don't sugarcoat anything. We keep it real, and we touch on what you guys want to talk about. Like this video. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe to PHNX Cardinals podcast wherever you get your pod. Thanks so much. Doubling down with PHNX Cardinals today, 4 p.m., 9 p.m. We're back on Friday. It's our Christmas Day preview show. Cards and Trace McSorley, host Tom Brady, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Be there. We'll see you Friday.